We've got a swoon-worthy love story for you today. Let's jump in and tell us, what city are you watching from? The rain in the suburbs of Detroit that night fell heavily, like an iron curtain. Water lashed against the windshield of Kiana Lopez's beat-up old Honda, making the wipers squeak like a groan. The dashboard clock ticked past 12:47 a.m. The gas station parking lot was deserted. The last employee had just locked the door and sped off, leaving only the flickering green neon light against the storm. Kiana turned the key for the umpteenth time. The engine roared, sputtered, then died. "No, don't do this," she whispered, pressing her forehead against the steering wheel, sobbing. The pressure inside her felt as crushing as the downpour outside. Losing her job, rent 3 weeks overdue, and medical bills stacked high. Her 16-year-old sister Zoe was burning with fever at home, all alone. She bit her lip, wondering how she would make it through tomorrow. And now, the car breaking down in the middle of a storm, her despair hit its limit. She opened her contacts. Derek, the ex-boyfriend who had moved to Chicago to chase his career. He once told her, "If you ever really need me, just call." Tonight she needed him. Her trembling finger dialed the number. The phone rang. "Police here, report your situation." A deep, firm, yet oddly playful male voice came through. Kiana froze, glancing at her screen. Oh no, she had misdialed. The last digit of Derek's number was a 4, but she had pressed 7. "Sorry, wrong number," she stammered quickly, swallowing tears. "I'll hang up." "Wait." The voice on the other end dropped lower, gentle but resolute. "Are you okay? Doesn't sound like someone who just misdialed." She stiffened. "Did he just call me baby?" The way he spoke was far too natural. I'm fine. The car broke down at the gas station lot. I'm fine." "Fine, yet you sound like you're crying." The stranger paused, then added, half serious, half joking, "You sure you don't need police assistance?" The unexpected joke made Kiana burst into a choked laugh, half broken, half amused. She couldn't even remember the last time she had laughed. "God, who are you?" "Silas," he replied simply. "And you?" "Kiana." "All right, Kiana. Now listen to me. Lock your doors again, turn on the cabin light, and don't open that door for anyone you don't know. Where exactly are you?" Kiana stayed silent, her grip on her phone tightening. A stranger, in the middle of the night, no matter how warm his voice sounded. What if this was a trap? As if reading her mind, Silas continued, calm but decisive. "Kiana, if you're afraid I'm tricking you, share your location with someone you trust. Better yet, give them my number too. If anything happens, they'll have my information first." He paused, then added with a touch of dry humor. "Honestly, if I had bad intentions, leaving my personal file like this would be pretty stupid, don't you think?" That last line made Kiana laugh softly, her fear easing a little. He wasn't hiding anything, on the contrary. He was encouraging her to be cautious. That was exactly why she wanted to believe him. She hesitated. A stranger. At night. But his voice carried a conviction that he wasn't out to take advantage of her. She looked around and spotted the flashing Reed Avenue sign. "Reed Avenue lot. The store just closed." "I know that place. Dangerous to sit there alone right now." Silas's tone sharpened. "I'll call an Uber for you. A black sedan, driven by Marcus. I'll send you the plate number. Only get in if it matches." Her phone chimed. A message arrived with the license plate photo. Kiana squinted, heart racing. He was too prepared if he meant her harm. Why would he be so transparent? "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You don't even know me." "Because the sound of your voice tells me you're too alone right now," Silas answered simply. "Sometimes a stranger can do what the people you know can't." Silence lingered for a few seconds. Rain hammered on the roof like war drums. Kiana's eyes blurred with fresh tears. Part of her mind warned, don't trust him. But another part whispered, he gave proof, he's still on the line, and he hasn't asked for anything. In her desperation, this was the only lifeline she had. "Okay," she whispered, "but don't hang up until I'm home." "Of course," Silas chuckled lightly. "You'll have to listen to me ramble nonsense the whole ride." "Like what?" Like, why I drink hot cocoa instead of espresso, he said evenly. Even though I'm a CEO, my niece swears cocoa helps you sleep better. There you go, national secret exposed. Kiana let out a real laugh, freer this time. Strange. 5 minutes ago, she was drowning in despair. Now she was bantering with a stranger. Headlights swept across the lot. A black sedan pulled up in front of her, blinkers flashing twice. Another chime. Car has arrived. Plate number D3L-492. Driver Marcus. A middle-aged man stepped out, holding an umbrella. He held up his phone to show her his screen. Ms. Kiana, I'm Marcus. Hot cocoa, right? Kiana exhaled in relief, smiling faintly. The password was correct. Keeping the phone to her ear, she whispered, I see it. Plate matches, password matches. I'm getting in. I'm here, Silas reminded. Tell me when you're inside your house. Kiana opened the door, dashed through the rain, clutching her backpack. Marcus opened the rear door, helped her in, then returned to the driver's seat. The door shut, the lock clicked. The car rolled forward. I'm safe now, she said softly into the phone. Good. Silas exhaled, his voice sounding like a weight had lifted from his chest. I'll stay on the line until you lock your front door. Outside the window, Detroit blurred in sheets of rain, but inside Kiana's heart, a small, warm light flickered. One wrong call, one unfamiliar voice, but it had become her lifeline in the darkest night. She smiled, leaning back against the seat, whispering, Thank you, Officer 1080. On the other end, Silas laughed, and somewhere else in the city, a man she had never met before stood by his high-rise office window, smiling for the first time in many long, bleak months. The Detroit night was still gray and stormy, but somewhere within it, two strangers had just been bound by a very real thread. The next morning, pale sunlight slipped through the worn-out blinds, spilling onto the damp living room floor. Kiana stirred awake on the sofa, her neck aching from sleeping, curled up. On the table nearby, Zoe was still fast asleep, her breathing raspy but her fever lower than the night before. Just as Kiana set down a reheated bowl of soup, her phone buzzed. An unknown number flashed on the screen. Him, the man from the wrong call. Kiana hesitated. Part of her wanted to ignore it. He was just a stranger. But her finger moved on its own and pressed the accept button. Hello? Good morning, Kiana. His warm, steady voice drifted through, like a note gliding past her exhaustion. I just wanted to make sure you got home safe last night. Kiana froze for a moment. The concern of a stranger made her heart skip a beat, but she kept her guard up. I made it. Everything's fine. You didn't have to call. I know I didn't, but I wanted to. Silas's reply was calm, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Besides, you still owe me a cup of hot cocoa. Kiana laughed a small laugh, the first in days after nothing but sighs. In the days that followed, the wrong call didn't end. On Monday night, the phone buzzed again. Kiana stared at the screen, hesitated, then answered. What are you doing? Silas's voice carried that low rasp of a man at the end of a long day. Checking Zoe's prescriptions. Kiana sighed, resting her chin on her hand. Official title, Big Sister, Part-Time Nurse, and Detroit's Worst Soup Cook. Sounds impressive, he chuckled. If this were Hotline 1080, I'd have to charge extra for the multi-function package. You do sound like a call center rep, Kiana teased. Like, hello, valued customer. Please hold for the next available agent. Exactly, but it'll cost you $2 a minute. Better have the cash ready, or I'll cut you off. Oh, so you are a scammer. She laughed out loud this time, the bright sound echoing through the tiny apartment. From the bedroom, Zoe peeked out in surprise. It had been a long time since her sister sounded this happy. The calls became a habit. At first, Kiana told herself, just a few words, then hang up. But each time, the minutes stretched into an hour, then 2, then 3. They traded fragments of their ordinary lives. Kiana admitted she once dreamed of finishing a business degree and landing a decent job, but survival and caring for Zoe had pulled her away. Silas shared that he, too, had once been buried in endless spreadsheets and back-to-back meetings. So what do you do exactly? Kiana asked one rainy night, listening to the downpour against the windows. Office work, Silas answered after a brief pause. All day, staring at numbers and paperwork? Nothing glamorous. From the way you describe it, I picture some guy at a keyboard till 2 in the morning, cold coffee at his elbow, hair sticking up like a bird's nest. Dead on! He burst out laughing. You really are good at guessing. Kiana laughed with him. In her mind's eye, he was more of a burnout office worker than any mysterious hero. And oddly enough, that made her feel comfortable. Not everyone needed to pretend to be perfect. Another night after Zoe had drifted into deep sleep, Kiana sat huddled at the kitchen table, papers and overdue bills spread out before her. Silas's voice came softly through the speakerphone. If you could do anything at all without worrying about money, what would it be? She stayed quiet for a long time, then sighed. I'd go back to school, finish my business degree. I'd want to work at a real company where my voice matters. But dreams are like old cars. When they break down, you just leave them on the roadside. Old cars can be fixed, Silas said slowly. Dreams too. You just need someone willing to listen to the engine sputter, replace the spark plugs, maybe add some fuel. The strange metaphor made Kiana laugh through her tears, equal parts sad and warm. You should quit office work and start a therapy hotline. I'm already planning it. It'll be called Silas 1080. Basic package. I sit and listen to your complaints. Premium package. I tell bad jokes until you laugh. I think I've already subscribed to the premium package. She murmured it shyly, cheeks burning, though her heart felt lighter. Day by day, the calls became their invisible meeting place. Kiana waited for the ringtone once Zoe fell asleep. Silas found comfort in her voice, an escape from his silent high-rise apartment. They had never met, yet each joke, each shared sigh, pulled the wide city of Detroit a little closer. Both knew this was no longer just a wrong call. It was a fragile but resilient thread. Two strangers connecting through nothing more than a voice, yet reaching into the deepest corners of each other's lives. Another rainy night in Detroit. Raindrops tapped steadily on the warped tin roof of the apartment, blending with the rough coughs coming from the next room. Kiana sat on the sofa with her laptop on her lap, the screen filled with financial figures that had nothing to do with her, except they all glared red. Her fingers trembled as she clicked through the rising prices of medicine. In the bedroom, Zoe's fever had eased for the moment, thanks to the very last fever reducer in the house. But Kiana knew that by tomorrow, maybe even in just a few hours, it would spike again. And the medicine was too expensive. Her phone buzzed. Silas. You're still awake? His voice came through low and rough, like he'd had a long day too. Someone's got insomnia. She tried to make it sound like a joke, though her throat felt tight. Actually, I'm calculating Zoe's medical costs. There was silence on the other end. Then Silas's voice softened. Tell me. Kiana bit her lip. Since meeting this stranger through a voice, she had already shared more than she'd ever expected. But money was still shameful to admit. Even so, his patient silence felt like a quiet nudge. Zoe's meds. They're too expensive. Insurance won't cover them. I've tried everything, but... She exhaled, her voice breaking. I hate saying it out loud. Feels like I'm just whining. No. Silas's reply was firm. You're not whining. You're fighting. There's a difference. The words made Kiana's eyes sting. No one had called her efforts a fight in a very long time. The next day, Kiana brought Zoe to Mercy Clinic, a modest neighborhood place that still charged high fees for uninsured patients. She braced herself to argue, beg, plead for a payment plan. But the doctor who met them was a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair and a gentle smile. Hello, you must be Zoe? He bent down kindly. I was told about your case. Don't worry, we'll take care of everything. Told? Kiana blinked. But I didn't register for anything. We have a patient assistance fund, the doctor explained. Today's exam and the medication are all covered. Just focus on taking good care of Zoe. Kiana was stunned. By the time they left the clinic with a full bag of medicine, her legs felt weak beneath her. Everything had happened too quickly, too unexpectedly. "Sis, who did this?" Zoe whispered, hugging the bag as if it were a treasure. Kiana pressed her lips together. Inside her rose a warmth tangled with suspicion. Was this a gift from heaven? Or the voice on the other end of the line? That night, with Zoe asleep, Kiana sat by the window listening to the rain and dialed the familiar number. "Hello?" Silas's voice answered on the very first ring. I I don't know who to thank, but today Zoe had a full checkup and got all her meds. They said it was covered by a patient support fund. Her voice wavered. "Was it you?" Silas stayed silent for a long while. Kiana could hear the tightness of his breath through the speaker. "Kiana, if you want to believe that was heaven, I won't argue." His tone was soft. "As long as Zoe's better, that's enough for me." Tears slid down Kiana's cheeks. She wanted to question him, but she also wanted to believe in the miracle. In the end, she exhaled and let out a shaky laugh. "Then I guess heaven picked up the phone. If so, I should start charging for the Angel Hotline package." Silas teased gently, and his faint laughter eased her heart. 2 days later, a delivery man knocked on their door. When Kiana opened it, she found a small box wrapped in craft paper. No sender's name, just a note, "For wrong number girl." Inside was a silver thermos, shiny and new. On its side was printed, "Wrong number girl, handle with care." Kiana burst out laughing, the sound filling the whole apartment. Zoe came running from her room, eyes wide with delight. "Who gave it to you?" "No idea," Kiana replied, cheeks flushed. "But I'd say someone with way too much free time." She opened the lid, the sweet scent of freshly made cocoa still rose warm from inside. A small slip of paper was taped under the cap. "Drink it while it's hot, S. Dot." Kiana laughed until tears spilled from her eyes. For the first time in months, her heart felt lighter than air. That night she called Silas, her voice still glowing with laughter. "Hey, Hotline 1080, did you just launch a new service? Thermos delivery to your doorstep?" That's right. Premium package. A custom thermos filled with cocoa. $5 a minute call rate." "Good Lord, the rates keep going up fast." She bit her lip to hide another giggle. "I should call the cops on you for fraud." "Go ahead, just don't forget. Send the thermos back." "No way!" Kiana hugged the thermos tight, grinning. They both laughed, their voices mingling with the sound of rain outside the window, like a cheerful melody against the weight of life. Later that night, after Zoe had fallen sound asleep, Kiana sat alone on the sofa, the thermos beside her. She sipped a mouthful of cocoa, warmth spreading through her chest. The words "wrong number girl" glowed faintly under the lamplight. She didn't really know who Silas was, how he lived, or what he did for a living. But in the middle of her exhausting days, his once foreign voice had become a steady comfort. And this silly little gift, however small, made her feel she wasn't alone in the fight anymore. Kiana leaned her head against the cushion and whispered, "Maybe. Angels don't have wings. Maybe they just have warm voices and bad jokes." On the other side of the city, Silas set his phone down on a glass table, gazing out at the storm. A smile tugged at his lips the first time in a long while he'd felt something close to hope. A week later, Kiana stood in front of Pinnacle Tower. The morning sun reflecting off its soaring glass walls made her squint. This wasn't just an office building. To her, it looked like a skyscraper castle for the wealthy. "God, what am I even doing here?" she muttered, clutching the cheap flea market handbag in her grip, painfully aware of the glossy designer purses swinging past her. That morning, Zoe had sent her off with a grin. "Have fun at work, sis, and don't get lost in the rich people's maze." Then she burst out laughing. Kiana had gritted her teeth. Only a real sister could be that merciless. She drew a long breath before pushing open the glass door. At the reception desk, a woman from HR named Elaine smiled and handed her a crisp uniform. "Here's your station. It's simple. Greet guests, answer calls, give directions. Don't worry, you'll get the hang of it quickly." Kiana nodded, her heart pounding like a drum. This wasn't just a job. This was a chance. Her first real chance after months of unemployment and debt. Almost without thinking, she pulled out her phone and typed a quick message to her familiar stranger. Wish me luck on my new job. Wait, actually, I guess I'm wishing it to myself. She sent it and immediately blushed. Why was she sharing this with someone she'd never even met? The screen lit up a few seconds later. You'll do great. Trust me. Kiana stared at the words and suddenly half her anxiety melted away. Trust me. 3 simple words, yet they felt like candy dissolving, sweet and calming, in the pit of her stomach. Her first day turned out to be a chaotic experience. A Japanese client who spoke no English handed her a crumpled map. A blonde woman screamed because the coffee machine on the 12th floor is broken, as if it were the receptionist's fault. Then a lost intern asked, "Where's room 1502?" in a tower that only had 40 floors. By lunchtime, Kiana was exhausted, slumped in her chair with a sigh. Instinctively, she texted Silas, "Turns out being a receptionist is basically like running an international airport. Only difference is, I don't have a loudspeaker." The reply came instantly. "If you had one, what would you say?" Kiana snorted, thumbs flying. "Attention passengers, blonde woman from the 12th floor, please board your flight to planet Mars and don't forget to bring your coffee." A laughing emoji pinged back. In the days that followed, the habit stuck. Morning greetings, lunchtime chaos updates, good night wishes. Kiana began to see Silas's texts as little doses of vitamins for her spirit. When she complained that a rude customer had nearly made her cry, he wrote, "Don't let anyone dim the glow of Pinnacle Tower's rising star receptionist." When she snapped a secret photo of her cheap lunchbox, he answered, "Hey, your $2 sandwich looks way better than the $200 steak I once had at some fancy place." Kiana laughed so hard she nearly got caught texting under the desk. One evening after her shift, she walked toward the bus stop. Detroit's skyline sparkled with lights, the wind damp with night air. Her phone buzzed. "Are you tired?" She leaned against a lamppost, smiling. "Tired but happy. Feels like I'm finally stepping onto the first rung of the ladder." This time Silas called instead of texting. His deep voice carried a tenderness she wasn't used to. "I knew you'd do it. Honestly, hearing you talk about your first day makes me feel like I'm starting fresh too." Kiana was silent, her heart trembling, a stranger yet somehow making her feel not so alone. "You know," she laughed to cover the emotion, "your voice is starting to sound like one of those motivational coaches on the radio. Then tomorrow I'll have to charge extra. $3 a minute, premium spirit coach package." "Oh my God, you've got more subscription plans than a phone company." Kiana shook her head, laughing. Those conversations gradually evolved into more than just banter or venting. Each message carried a touch of gentle care, a bit of shy warmth, fragments of feelings unnamed. One night, while Zoe sketched away in her room, Kiana held her wrong number girl thermos on the balcony and texted Silas, "Do you ever think one wrong call could turn into a habit like this?" He answered after a pause, "What number? But if I could, I'd want it to be a habit for life." Kiana froze, staring at the screen. Misty drizzle fell, and the streetlights blurred. Her heart skipped a beat. She typed with trembling fingers, "Hey, are you flirting?" "Who knows?" The reply came with a winking emoji. Kiana burst out laughing, pressing the warm thermos against her flushed cheek. On its side, the words "wrong number girl" gleamed softly under the balcony light. That night, even after the lights were off and Zoe was asleep, Kiana lay restless. Silas's last message still glowed in her mind. "I'd want it to be a habit for life." She smiled in the dark. A faceless stranger, existing only through a voice and a string of texts, had somehow become her strongest support in this hard chapter of her life. Just before sleep claimed her, she whispered, "Maybe. One wrong call, but right for a lifetime." A chilly Detroit morning. Pinnacle Tower loomed like a steel needle piercing through the gray clouds. Kiana stepped into the vast glass lobby. Wobbling slightly in the borrowed high heels from her neighbor, she felt like she was walking a tightrope. That morning, Elaine had called, "Board meeting today. Lots of important guests, be ready to welcome them." Kiana had nearly dropped her staff badge in panic. "Okay, keep your cool. You're the receptionist." "The receptionist goddess," she whispered to herself, pumping courage into her chest. At exactly 9 a.m., the grand elevator doors slid open. A group of people walked out, their suits sharp and shoes polished. In the middle of them was a tall man with broad shoulders and neatly styled dark hair. His stride was calm, but his piercing gaze silenced the entire lobby. Kiana lowered her head in a polite bow and turned to walk back to her desk when that voice. Chen's file will be postponed until next week, and I want the morning report by 5 p.m. Kiana's heart jolted violently. That voice too familiar, too close. She lifted her eyes. The man stopped, turned, and their gazes locked. 1 second. 2. 3. The world froze. Her mouth fell open. It was him. Silas. The man who had spoken to her night after night. The one who had sent her the wrong number girl thermos. Except the name badge clipped to his suit pocket read clearly, Silas Grant, CEO. Kiana stumbled back, her chest aching. So it had all been a lie? She thought she had been confiding in some ordinary office guy, but in truth, it was the CEO of the tower itself, a man who could buy the world without blinking. Kiana? Silas's voice cracked, his expression one of stunned surprise. It's you? Her voice trembled. You're Silas Grant? CEO Silas Grant? His assistant raised a brow, looking between them. The air in the lobby tightened like a drawn bowstring. Kiana shook her head, a mix of anger and humiliation. So all this time you hid from me. You listened to me talk about debts, medicine, my tears, while you sat up there on the top floor of this tower with an empire in your hands. It wasn't like that. Silas took a step forward, but she recoiled. Then what? Some pastime? Chatting with a desperate girl who dialed the wrong number to kill your boredom? Kiana forced a bitter laugh, though her lips shook. Silas's eyes stung. He opened his mouth, but in her anger, Kiana blurted, Guess I was stupid enough to trust Mr. Wrong Number. The entire lobby went dead silent. Then dozens of eyes swung to her. Silas's assistant froze, then bent over his iPad, shoulders shaking as he tried not to laugh, nearly choking. Silas's face paled, though the corner of his mouth twitched like he couldn't decide whether to laugh or rush after her. Kiana, please, just hear me out. His voice was desperate, but Kiana's face was burning red with shame. God, the entire building would probably call her Miss Wrong Number Receptionist from now on. Without thinking, she darted behind the desk and fumbled for her bag. I need air. Silas started forward, but she bolted, darting through the revolving glass doors like a squirrel escaping a trap. The borrowed heels clattered against the marble floor, nearly tripping her, but she didn't dare look back. Behind her, Silas stood frozen, his heart in chaos. He, who could command hundreds of employees and sign billion-dollar contracts without hesitation, was now rooted in place like a fool left behind. His assistant spoke carefully. Sir? Mr. Wrong Number? Silas pressed a hand to his forehead and let out a pained laugh. Shut up, or I'll officially change your title to Mr. Nosy. Kiana burst into the street. The cold wind lashed her face, tears streaming until she couldn't tell where the rain ended and her humiliation began. She felt utterly foolish pouring her heart out to a man who had hidden his identity all along. A stranger through a voice? No, he was a financial tycoon, and she was nothing more than a passing amusement. She clutched the Wrong Number girl thermos in her bag, suddenly heavy as stone. Inside the tower, Silas stood at the window, eyes locked on her small figure, disappearing into the rush of the city crowd. And for the first time, he felt something he had never felt in the boardroom, that a contract could wait, but one woman could not. He whispered to himself, a vow more than words. Kiana, I'll make you understand. I've never, not for 1 second, been playing with you. Kiana had never switched her phone off so many times in one day. From morning until night, the screen lit up again and again with Silas's name, but she stubbornly refused to answer. Her heart pounded every time, yet her mind screamed, No! He fooled you, Kiana Lopez. Don't be so easy. By the third day, when her work inbox pinged with a new email, she nearly spilled her coffee all over the keyboard. From Silas Grant. Subject, regarding guest reception procedures, and a few other things. Kiana swallowed hard, her pulse racing. She opened it, eyes scanning quickly. Kiana, first of all, thank you for handling last week's guest reception so well. Several partners gave very positive feedback about your friendliness and tact. Also, I'd like to remind you to remember to eat lunch on time. Skipping meals could affect your work performance. This is purely professional HR advice. No personal meaning attached. Actually, that's a lie. It is personal. Sincerely, Silas Grant. Kiana burst into giggles, then immediately frowned. God, what kind of CEO writes an email that sounds like a clumsy love note? She muttered, though her cheeks flushed hot. That evening, Zoe rested her chin in her hands, watching her sister laugh alone at the screen. Hey, are you mad at your not yet official boyfriend? Kiana choked. Don't talk nonsense. He's a CEO, and I'm just a lowly receptionist. So what? Zoe shrugged. He still cares about you. I can see it plain as day. You're both mad and missing him. You shut off your phone and sulk, but one email makes you smile. You think I'm blind? Kiana threw a pillow at her. Zoe burst into laughter, rolling on the couch. But when the bedroom door closed, Kiana sat in silence, fingertips brushing over the words, "Remember to eat lunch." Her heart softened. Angry as she was, she missed him all the same. Meanwhile, across Detroit, a sleek black town car rolled over cobblestone streets. Marcus held the wheel steady. In the back seat, Silas sat quietly, eyes locked on the screen filled with unanswered calls. Marcus cleared his throat. Still no answer, Mr. Grant? Silas leaned back, exhaling. Do you know the worst part, Marcus? I can negotiate with the toughest sharks on Wall Street, but I can't convince one woman that I mean what I say. Marcus smiled faintly, keeping his eyes on the road. Actually, that's the beauty of it. You're accustomed to people being drawn to your money and power first. But this girl, all she saw was a voice. Silas fell silent, then nodded slowly. Exactly. With her, I wasn't a CEO. I was just Mr. Wrong Number. And I've never felt more myself. Marcus chuckled softly. If you want, I could happen to pick her up on another rainy night. Silas let out a helpless laugh. Number, let her choose. I want Kiana to believe that no matter who I am, what I feel for her is real. In the rearview mirror, Marcus caught a rare sight. His boss, smiling faintly, yet with worry clouding the eyes of the most powerful man in the city. That night, Kiana tossed and turned in bed. Her phone lay right beside her pillow, its screen black and silent. She was angry but restless. Zoe's words from earlier kept circling in her mind. You're not yet official boyfriend. She whispered into the darkness. Mr. Wrong Number, you've messed me up completely. Across the city, Silas sat alone in his cold penthouse, yellow lamplight stretching his shadow across the wall. He opened his laptop, cursor blinking on a blank email. Slowly he typed, Kiana, I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I only hope you believe that everything I said, every call, every laugh, was real. If you can, give me a chance to explain not as a CEO, but as a man who fell in love with your voice. He sat for a long time, staring at the words. In the end, he didn't send it. Instead, he typed one short message, Good night, Wrong Number girl. On the other side, Kiana saw the text. Her heart raced. She pouted, half annoyed, yet unable to stop herself from smiling. Detroit's afternoon shimmered with sunlight, but Kiana's stomach twisted in knots. In her hands lay a thick invitation card, embossed with gold letters. Charity Gala, Pinnacle Foundation. Sender, Silas Grant. She had hesitated for 3 days. If she went, she risked becoming a laughingstock. If she didn't, well, she felt an ache of disappointment. In the end, Zoe had delivered the verdict. Sis, he sent the invitation personally. Not going would be a total waste of the dress I dug up at the thrift donation pile last week. Kiana propped her chin on her hand, staring at the navy blue dress hanging nearby. It was simple, a little too long at the hem, but intact. She sighed. Fine, but remember, if I get embarrassed so badly I want to crawl into the floor, it's all your fault. That evening, the lobby of the Grand Horizon Hotel looked straight out of a Hollywood film. Dazzling crystal chandeliers, a live jazz band, gowns glittering like starlight, and the tinkling laughter of the city's elite. Kiana walked in, her heart pounding. Everyone around her sparkled like diamonds, while she felt like a grain of sand. She slipped toward a corner, clutching her worn-out clutch purse, when a voice rang out. "You came." Silas stood there in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, bow tie crisp, eyes lighting up as they fell on her. For a moment, the noise around them seemed to fade. "You really wanted me here," Kiana whispered, trying to mask her nerves. "Who else would I bring to this gala?" The teasing remark made her laugh, easing the tension slightly. And as fate would have it, when she reached for a glass of wine from a passing tray, her hand trembled. One light bump from behind, splash. Crimson wine spilled straight onto the pristine white gown of a blonde society matron standing nearby. The room froze. The woman someone had just whispered her name, Mrs. Cartwright, stared at her, as though she had committed treason. "You? What have you done?" Kiana turned tomato red, stammering. I'm so sorry. I'll pay for the dry cleaning." Before Mrs. Cartwright could unleash her fury, Silas stepped in, laying a calm hand on Kiana's shoulder. His voice carried easily across the room. "This is the latest design from Milan, the Red Splash edition. Surprised you haven't heard of it yet?" A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd. Mrs. Cartwright's face turned scarlet, but she could hardly argue in public. Muttering under her breath, she stormed off in humiliation. Kiana stared at Silas wide-eyed. "You just saved me?" "Saved you?" He shrugged. "I just made you a fashion icon. By tomorrow, half the city will be splashing wine on dresses to stay in style." Kiana burst out laughing, nearly choking on her drink. But even as Silas turned the disaster into comedy, Kiana could still hear the whispers behind her. "Who is she? That dress alone screams out of her league. I heard she's just a receptionist at Pinnacle Tower." The eyes of scrutiny burned into her back. She wanted to crawl under a table. And then, slicing through the chatter, came a voice she instantly recognized, sharp as a blade. "Well, isn't this interesting? Silas, you bring a receptionist to a charity gala now?" Kiana turned. A tall woman with shining blonde hair stood in a fiery red gown. The room fell silent around her. Vanessa, Silas's ex-wife. Her smile was razor-edged, her gaze sweeping over Kiana like she was a bargain bin product. "Your taste really has changed." Silas held his ground, voice steady. "Vanessa, this is Kiana. She's someone very important to me." The short introduction rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. Kiana's throat closed, she wanted to protest. "I'm just an employee." But no words came out. Vanessa arched a brow, her smile sly, then turned sharply, leaving behind a trail of expensive perfume. After the encounter, Kiana slipped out to the balcony to breathe. The night air was cool, Detroit glittering below like a sea of lights. Yet her chest felt heavy. "I don't belong here. These glittering gowns, those sneering looks, even Vanessa, I'm nothing but an outsider." Silas followed her, setting his glass down on the railing. "Are you all right?" "Fine," she forced a smile. "As fine as Mrs. Cartwright's white dress." Silas chuckled softly, though his gaze was gentle. "I know this isn't easy for you, but you don't have to try to be like them. Just be yourself." "But I don't fit this world. I'm just wrong number girl, Silas." He was quiet for a moment, then leaned closer, his voice firm. "And you're the only person in that room I wanted by my side." Her heart skipped a beat, the words echoing deep inside her. Yet even as her pulse raced, the muffled laughter and buzzing music from inside pressed against her. The dissonance left her torn in two. When the gala ended, Silas offered her a ride home in his town car, but Kiana insisted on taking a taxi. On the ride back, she sat silently, navy dress rumpled in the dark, her mind replaying his words. "You're the only one?" And still Vanessa's mocking laughter and those cutting stares clung to her like shadows. Leaning her head against the cool glass of the taxi window, she whispered, "I'm stepping into a game too big, and I'm not sure I'm ready." Meanwhile, from the high balcony of the hotel, Silas watched the glow of her taxi vanish into the distance. His grip tightened around the stem of his glass, his eyes burning with resolve. "If you believe you don't belong in this world, then I'll make this world belong to you." Still following the story? If this story found you outside of Soul Stories, we invite you home. to where every touching tale begins with truth, hope, and heart. Detroit lit up for the night, streets buzzing beneath the glow of amber lights. Kiana walked quickly along the sidewalk, her heart still unsettled after the charity gala. On her phone, one unread message from Silas remained. I know I owe you an explanation. Give me a chance to tell the truth. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m., Bella's Italian on Pine Street. If you don't come, I'll sit there until they close. She had meant to ignore it, but all day at work, every time her eyes fell on the wrong number girl thermos on her desk, her heart softened, which was why, now, she found herself standing in front of Bella's, a small Italian eatery, tucked between two worn-down buildings. Its neon sign flickered, while the aroma of pizza and tomato sauce floated into the evening air. Kiana pushed the door open. No chandeliers, no glittering gowns, just wooden tables, red and white checkered cloth, and the smell of warm garlic bread. In the corner, Silas was already waiting. Gone was the flawless tuxedo. He wore a rolled-up dark blue shirt, tie tucked into his pocket. A very different Silas, simpler, even human. He jumped to his feet when he saw her, his smile tinged with a hint of awkwardness. You came. I'm only here to hear your explanation. Kiana folded her arms, keeping her guard up. And I'll tell you everything, Silas said, signaling the waiter. But first, let's order a pizza. If we're going to share secrets, we might as well have cheese and wine as witnesses. The line was playful enough to tug the corner of her lips upward, though she quickly forced herself serious again. With the red wine glinting in candlelight, Silas took a deep breath and began. You know, people look at me and see a CEO, someone who has more than he'll ever need. However, the truth is that I started with nothing. My father left when I was 8 years old. My mother worked as a maid, cleaning houses so I could go to school. Kiana sat silently, eyes wide. I worked dishwashing jobs, parking cars, and delivering newspapers. Sometimes I had only enough in my pocket for a dry piece of bread. My mother always told me, just hold on to your kindness. Everything else will find its way. He paused, his gaze lowering. She passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. I had the money for the best hospitals, but I couldn't save her. Kiana's throat tightened. She saw herself reflected in his story, an older sister fighting to keep her sibling alive with medicine. Softly, she said, I understand. My parents died in an accident 3 years ago. Since then, I've had to work, study, and raise Zoe on my own. Maybe we both know what it's like to lose the only anchor we had. Their eyes met, sorrow and recognition mingling in the quiet space between them. Silas sipped his wine, then continued. When the company took off, I thought I had everything. I married Vanessa, but that was the biggest mistake of my life. She loved the image of the successful CEO, the galas, the magazine covers, but she never cared to know who I really was. His hand tightened on the glass. When my mother was sick, I spent most of my time at the hospital. Vanessa felt abandoned. She filed for divorce. The press painted me as a man incapable of love. But the truth is, I had never loved the right person. Kiana lowered her gaze. His words didn't sound like excuses from a rich man. They were raw, even clumsy. The cold CEO from the magazines now seemed more like a man confessing failures to a simple girl across the table. She let out a small laugh, half bitter, half warm. Funny, I thought you were just some rich man toying with my misery for fun. Turns out, you've struggled, lost, and been lonely too. Silas nodded, his eyes earnest. Yes, and from the night you dialed the wrong number, you broke that emptiness. You didn't see CEO Grant. You just heard a voice, and I couldn't bear to lose that. The air between them softened. The waiter arrived with a steaming pizza, cheese bubbling golden. Kiana picked up her fork, but Silas grinned. Fork and knife for pizza? Come on, this is a family Italian joint. Wrong number, girl. She laughed, tearing a slice with her hands. For the first time in weeks, she felt at ease, like she was sharing dinner with a friend, not a powerful executive. The pizza slowly disappeared as they swapped stories, favorite books, awkward childhood memories. Kiana confessed she once sold cookies for a school fundraiser, but ate half of them herself. Silas nearly doubled over laughing, admitting that at 16, he forged his mom's signature just to get a part-time job. At last, only one slice remained, small and gooey with cheese. Both reached for it at once. "That's mine," Kiana cried. "Nope, mine. CEO privilege, the last slice," Silas teased. "Greedy CEO," she laughed, tugging it toward her. He held firm, pulling back. Their eyes locked, grins tugging at their lips. And then, neither knew quite when it happened. But the pizza was forgotten. The space between them closed. Their lips brushed lightly, then deepened into a kiss. The faint taste of tomato and cheese, awkward yet warm. Kiana pulled back, cheeks flaming. "Did we just kiss over a slice of pizza?" Silas chuckled low, eyes bright. "Then thank the pizza. It's smarter than I am." They both burst out laughing, their laughter mingling with the scratchy Italian music playing from the old radio in the corner. When they left Bella's, Detroit's streetlights cast golden halos on the rain-slick sidewalks. Silas walked her to a taxi, holding the door open, his gaze lingering. "I won't promise to be perfect, but I promise everything you saw tonight, my childhood, my mistakes, my grief. That's the real me." Kiana stayed quiet, but as the taxi pulled away, she glanced back, whispering, "Thank you for being honest." Silas stood watching until the car vanished, hope swelling in his chest. That night, Kiana lay in bed, clutching the wrong number girl thermos, her heart racing. She knew things wouldn't be simple, that Vanessa and the high society world still waited to judge her, but that clumsy kiss over a slice of pizza had carved its mark. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope for something different. And Silas, alone in his vast penthouse, smiled quietly to himself. To him, that kiss was not just a fleeting emotion. It was a silent vow. From one wrong call, they could write an entire right story. Monday morning, the moment Kiana stepped into Pinnacle Tower, she sensed something was wrong. Co-workers were huddled over their phones, whispering, glancing at her with a mix of curiosity and pity. Elaine, the HR manager, hurried over, her face tight. "Kiana, don't pay attention. The tabloids are at it again with their trashy headlines." Kiana's heart pounded. She snatched a newspaper off the reception desk. Bold letters screamed across the cover. "CEO Silas Grant's new girlfriend is just a receptionist who dialed the wrong number. Gold digger or fairy tale romance?" Beneath it was a grainy photo. She and Silas walking out of Bella's Italian restaurant last week, smiling like fools. The article added fuel. "Sources claim this poor girl is exploiting the CEO's pity to climb into a new life." Heat flared across Kiana's face. Her hands shook as she crumpled the paper. Every word cut at her pride like a knife. That afternoon, she sat curled up in her tiny apartment, hugging a pillow, staring out the rain-smeared window. The article had already spread online. Old acquaintances texted her, half curious, half judgmental. "They're right. I don't belong in that world. I'm just entertainment." She shot up suddenly, grabbed a small suitcase, and started stuffing clothes inside. The thought flared. Quit the job. Quit Silas. Quit everything. Then came the pounding at her door. "Kiana, open the door!" Her chest clenched. Silas's voice. "Go away," she shouted. "I don't want to see you anymore. If you don't open this door, I'll call a locksmith." His tone was part frustration, part panic. "Do you think a CEO won't actually do it?" The door flew open. Silas stood there, breathless, hair damp from the rain, a crumpled newspaper in his hand. "Did you read it?" He held the paper up. "I did. And they're right," Kiana snapped, eyes brimming. "I'm just the wrong number girl, and you're the rich CEO. Everyone thinks I'm using you." Silas strode closer, gripping her shoulders. "Listen, if you're digging for gold, then this gold mine is giving itself up to you, willingly. Got it?" Kiana froze, then burst out laughing through her tears. "Do you have any idea how stupid that sounds?" "Stupid maybe, but honest." His eyes locked with hers. "You're not taking anything from me. I'm the one who needs you." She turned away, voice breaking. "But I'm exhausted. Exhausted from the stares, the gossip, from even Vanessa." At that name, Silas's jaw tightened. "Vanessa means nothing. She's only bitter because for the first time, I'm in love with someone real." Kiana stayed silent, her heart still torn. Just then, the bedroom door creaked open. Zoe poked her head out, hair messy, ink smudges on her cheek. "Can you two stop with the 8 p.m. soap opera? I can't study." Kiana flushed crimson. Silas cleared his throat, stepping back a pace. Zoe crossed her arms, glaring at her sister. "Have you forgotten who was there the night your car broke down at the gas station? Who called you an Uber? Who worried about my medicine? Did the tabloids bring you soup when you were sick?" Kiana lowered her head. The walls around her stubborn heart started to crumble. Zoe turned to Silas. "And you, if you truly care for my sister, be patient. Don't let her run just because of some trashy articles." Silas smiled softly, inclining his head in a gesture of gratitude. The room fell into silence. At last, Kiana let the suitcase drop from her hand. Her voice wavered. I don't know if I can handle this pressure." Silas stepped closer, gently taking her hand. "Then let me handle it with you. Alone, it's exhausting. But two people together, it's different. Trust me." His eyes shone with determination, nothing like the cold CEO on magazine covers. This was the man who had once stayed on the line for hours just to hear her sigh. Kiana let out a shaky laugh, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Mr. Wrong Number, you make me suffer too much." Silas bent down, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Then let me make you suffer a little more, but only the suffering that comes with love. Deal?" She laughed through her tears, feeling lighter than she had in days. From the bedroom, Zoe shouted, "Just say yes already so I can sleep." Both burst out laughing, the tension melting into warmth. That night, as she walked Silas to the door, Kiana whispered, "I'm still angry, but I'll try trusting you one more time." Silas squeezed her hand, eyes glowing. "One more time is all I need. I'll make it forever." Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening with scattered lights, like tiny fragments of hope rekindled in both their hearts. The rain poured down on Detroit as if trying to wash away the city's troubles. Streets shimmered like rivers of glass, and yellow streetlights stretched into long, blurry streaks on the wet pavement. On a familiar corner stood Kiana and Zoe's worn-down apartment, its tin roof rattling under the pounding drops. Silas stood under the tiny awning, his black umbrella long since flipped inside out by the wind. His shirt clung to his shoulders, soaked through, tie hanging crooked. There was nothing of the polished CEO about him now, only a man with one thought in his mind. "Kiana." He knocked on the door. "Kiana, it's me." Inside, Kiana was lifting a pot of soup off the stove for Zoe when her heart clenched at the sound of his voice. She hesitated, torn, but in the end, she opened the door. "What are you doing here?" she asked, arms crossed, leaning against the frame, voice laced with feigned coldness. Rain dripped from Silas's brow as he caught his breath. "To say everything I didn't get to say. If you still want me gone after that, I'll go." Kiana frowned, then turned her back. "Come in. Standing in the rain like that is stupid." They sat in the small living room, yellow lamplight pooling over the old sofa. Zoe's soft cough from the other room only made the silence heavier. Silas drew a long breath, eyes bright despite his weariness. "Kiana, I know you feel like you don't belong in my world, but listen to me. I don't love you for who you are in anyone else's eyes, or for your circumstances. I love you for the way you care for Zoe, for the way you smile even when exhausted, even for the way you call me Mr. Wrong Number." Kiana bit her lip. "But you're a CEO, and me, I'm just a girl who misdialed a number. The tabloids were right. We're too different." Silas shook his head, his voice rough. "I don't need someone suitable by their standards. I need someone who truly sees me. And you did from the very first night. You didn't care if I was rich or poor. You just listened, shared, and laughed. I can't lose that over headlines." She sat still, her heart softening. The truth in his eyes left no room for doubt. It wasn't just words. Tears slid down Kiana's cheeks. "Do you know how afraid I've been? Afraid of being a joke. Afraid you'd tire of me, and I'd be left with only humiliation." Silas reached gently for her trembling hands. "I can't promise to silence the world, but I promise to shield you every day, every hour. Not out of guilt, but out of love. Because I love you, Kiana Lopez." Her heart cracked wide open. She looked up, eyes wet. Did you just say, you love me? Yes. Silas smiled, voice trembling as if fearing rejection. Not CEO Silas Grant, just a man so lonely he clung to a wrong number. And that man loved you from the very first moment he heard you laugh through your tears. From the bedroom, Zoe coughed deliberately, then called out, "Are you two going to keep acting out a soap opera in the living room all night? Take it outside, some of us are trying to sleep." Kiana laughed through her tears. Silas's gaze held hers, intent, unshakable. Together, as if pulled by an invisible thread, they rose and stepped out under the awning. The rain still fell hard. Kiana tilted her face upward, letting the cool drops wash over her. Silas pulled her close, arms tightening around her. "I'm sorry I made you doubt me, but from now on, if you let me, I'll prove every day that you're the only one I need." Kiana wrapped her arms around him, resting her head on his shoulder. "I'm still scared, but I trust you, Mr. Wrong Number." They laughed at the same time, their voices mingling with the rain, washing away days of tension. In that tender moment, Silas suddenly sneezed loudly. Then again. "Achoo! Achoo!" Kiana jumped back in alarm. "Oh my God, you just pulled off the most romantic confession, and now you look like a drenched, sneezing cat." Silas wiped his face, laughing between sneezes. "If I get sick, it's your fault. Your fault for making me fall in love with a flu-ridden CEO." Kiana doubled over with laughter, tears mixing with rain. She brushed his wet hair back gently. "Fine, I'll take responsibility. But if you've got a runny nose tomorrow, don't expect me to buy tissues for you." Silas grinned, eyes shining bright enough to cut through the storm. He leaned down, nothing holding him back this time. Their lips met in the Detroit rain, sweet, clumsy, perfect. When they finally came back inside, drenched from head to toe, Zoe sat up with a dramatic sigh. "Well, that's settled. You're officially together. I'm the witness." Kiana blushed furiously. Silas chuckled, gripping her hand firmly. Outside, the rain still fell, but inside that small apartment, something new had begun. A love born of a wrong number, of tears, laughter, and even a few unstoppable sneezes. A year passed in the blink of an eye. Detroit's skies still swung between rain and sunshine. But for Kiana, each day now carried a peace she once thought she would never have. From the nervous receptionist she once was, Kiana had grown into a project management assistant at Pinnacle Tower. She knew almost every client by name, mastered procedures, and could even hold her own in meetings. Elaine, once her manager, now a close friend and mentor, often teased, "I knew that smile of yours would take you places. It even beats CEO Grant's, you know." Kiana only laughed, but inside she brimmed with pride. Her success wasn't handed to her as the CEO's girlfriend. It came from her own persistence and effort, day after day. Meanwhile, Zoe was healthier than ever. The endless coughs were gone, replaced by bright eyes and the shining grin she wore as she waved an acceptance letter. A summer art scholarship at a prestigious school. She dashed around the house, proudly showing off every sketch, every photograph. "Look, sis, if my first exhibition is a hit, you and Silas have to come with a giant bouquet, promise?" Kiana hugged her little sister tightly, overcome with emotion. It had been so long since they could laugh so freely. The home Kiana and Silas now shared was neither a glittering penthouse nor the cramped old apartment, but a warm suburban house. In the backyard, Zoe tended pots of tomatoes. In the living room, vanilla-scented candles flickered softly. Evenings often rang with playful arguments. "It's definitely your turn to do the dishes." Kiana planted her hands on her hips, holding up an apron like a flag. "No way, I remember clearly you lost the bet yesterday," Silas countered, his CEO tone sounding more like a sulking schoolboy. "CEOs have to play fair too. Or do you want me to report you to Marcus and let him referee?" Just then, Marcus walked in carrying a bag of bread. The old driver shook his head, chuckling. "You two argue like grade schoolers. Hand it over, I'll wash the dishes." "No!" Kiana and Silas shouted in unison. In the end, Silas was the one roped into wearing rubber gloves at the sink, scrubbing away while Kiana stood watching, arms folded, grinning in triumph. "See? Even the mighty CEO loses in the end. Marcus sipped tea, leaning towards Zoe to whisper, "Never thought I'd end up as the uncle in the house. But honestly, listening to these two argue over dirty dishes beats driving any day." Zoe and Kiana burst into laughter. Silas pretended to sulk, though a smile tugged at the corners of his lips. Life together wasn't just about kitchen squabbles. Some mornings, Silas rushed to prep documents, and Kiana handed him a hot coffee in his battered thermos, the one still etched with "Wrong number girl," its paint peeling. He held it like a treasure, smiling. "That wrong call gave me a family." On quiet nights, they sat together on the porch, listening to the rain while Zoe shared her dreams of becoming an artist. Silas usually said little, only squeezing Kiana's hand gently as if to remind her he wasn't going anywhere. One autumn evening, while the three of them lounged in the living room with pizza boxes scattered around, Zoe suddenly asked, "So, when are you two getting married?" Kiana nearly choked on her slice. Zoe, what kind of question is that?" Silas raised an eyebrow, a mischievous smile playing on his lips. "Good question." "Exactly," Marcus chimed in, feigning seriousness. "As your uncle, I need to know so I can get my suit ready." Kiana's face went scarlet as she buried it in a sofa cushion. "Why is everyone in this house teaming up on me?" Silas tugged her hand gently, his voice equal parts sincere and teasing. "I think we should start planning. Nothing extravagant, just something warm, something that tells you and Zoe you'll always belong here." Her gaze softened. She didn't answer with words, only a small nod. But the radiant smile that broke across Silas's face said it all. A year after that wrong number call, Kiana had a steady career, Zoe thrived with her art scholarship, and Silas, once a lonely CEO, had found a peaceful home. In that little house, laughter filled every meal, playful arguments over dishes echoed in the kitchen, and quiet promises of an upcoming wedding hung in the air. And it had all begun with one wrong call on a rainy night in Detroit. That summer, Detroit wore a brilliant green. In the small garden of the suburban home Kiana, Silas, and Zoe had built together over the past year, white roses bloomed under gentle golden light. String lights twinkled overhead, and wooden tables and chairs lined up neatly. It wasn't a grand wedding with hundreds of guests, but a warm, intimate celebration, exactly what Kiana had always dreamed of. Only the people who truly loved them present. Marcus, for once out of his chauffeur's suit, looked rather dashing as the day's reluctant efficient. Adjusting the microphone with a grin, he muttered, "Boss Grant, today you don't get to order meeting at 10 or reports in 5. Today belongs to Kiana." Silas chuckled, nodding, his gaze already fixed at the end of the flower-strewn aisle, where Kiana waited. Piano music floated across the garden as the guests rose to their feet. Kiana appeared in a simple white gown, unpretentious yet radiant. Beside her, Zoe glowed as a bridesmaid in a pastel blue dress, eyes sparkling with joy. Silas held his breath. His heart raced just like the first time he had heard Kiana's voice on that rainy night. As the couple walked down the aisle, a few Pinnacle Tower employees whispered to each other, barely stifling their laughter. "This is definitely the boss's most successful deal. Yeah, he dialed the wrong number and closed the contract of a lifetime." The group erupted in giggles. Silas shot them a mock warning glare, but even he couldn't hide his smile. Kiana overheard, cheeks burning, but she laughed too. As the ceremony drew to a close, Zoe stepped forward and took the microphone. The crowd fell silent, watching the 17-year-old with expectant eyes. "Hi, everyone. I'm Zoe, the bride's sister. I just have a few words today." She cleared her throat, drawing laughter from the crowd. "If it weren't for that wrong number, my sister would probably still be single, eating instant noodles in our tiny apartment. Oh, and yelling at me for spilling paint on the floor." The garden was filled with laughter. Zoe continued, her voice softening. "But because of that wrong number, we have Silas, not just a brother-in-law, but the man who helped my sister believe in love again. Thank you for loving her and loving me too. I hope that call will always be the most beautiful mistake of your lives." Tears brimmed in Kiana's eyes as she hugged her sister tight. Silas rested a tender hand on Zoe's shoulder. When it came time for vows, a warm summer breeze whispered through the roses. Silas held Kiana's hands, his voice deep, trembling slightly. A year ago, you were just a stranger's voice in the rain, but that voice pulled me out of loneliness, gave me a family, and made me believe I was still worthy of love. I vow to stand by you not only in sunshine, but through every Detroit storm. Kiana looked into his eyes, her lips quivering. I once thought a wrong number meant nothing, but it turned out to be the most important call of my life. You don't love me for my past or my circumstances. You love me for who I am, and I vow to always pick up when you call, whether through tears or laughter. For a moment, the garden held its breath, then erupted into applause. Marcus deliberately raised his voice. And now, Silas, you may kiss the bride. But this time, no spilling wine on anyone's dress. The guests burst into laughter. Kiana flushed bright red. Silas laughed, then leaned down to kiss her beneath the canopy of white roses. After the vows, guests mingled, feasting and chatting amid cheerful music. Zoe tugged the photographer's sleeve. Quick, take our family photo. Silas wrapped his arm around Kiana's waist, and Kiana pulled Zoe close. The three leaned together, smiling widely. Golden light filtered through the trees, their shadows falling across the green grass. From a wrong number on a rainy night to a family. The photo was framed and placed in their suburban living room as proof of a love born from the sweetest mistake. When night fell and guests departed, Kiana sat in the garden, her gown pooling softly under the warm glow of string lights. Silas laid a hand on her shoulder, Zoe beside them, nibbling the last cupcake. So, it's done, Kiana smiled. No, Silas replied gently. This is only the beginning, the start of a lifelong contract I sign willingly. No signature required, but your smile. Kiana laughed. Zoe rolled her eyes with a grin. You two are way too romantic, but I like it. They all laughed together. Above them, the Detroit sky glittered with stars clear after the rain. And in that laughter, a new family was written into being born of a wrong number, sealed as a love for life.